Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Henrik Bick. I'm here with the Music Business Association, talking to you today about today's webinar. We're thankful to have Music Reports here for a very special session. And before I hand things over to Music Reports for what you're all waiting for, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping notes for you about the session today. As always, since we're in Zoom, feel free to connect with one another through the chat function on Zoom. And if you have any questions for our presenter, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box and we'll be addressing them at the end of the session. As far as upcoming webinars go, our next session will be on May 20th and hosted by Vivo. We'll go through some unique uses for music video metadata, and you'll learn about how data is categorized not just by the content of a song, but also by listener reaction or emotion, and how this data helps their partners better target their audiences. Visit musicbiz.org and go through the events section to register for this webinar and all of our events. We're at the beginning of May here, so we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize the start of Mental Health Awareness Month. Just a reminder for Music Biz members, the Mental Health Fund is still open. We're accepting applications via our website, musicbiz.org, drop-down menu for Empower. This is to help anyone who has been experiencing a change of employment, fire, furloughing of a Music Biz member company, helping you to access any mental health facilities or services you need. Therapy, counseling, anything under the sun. So please feel free to check that out. Again, open to Music Biz members. And also for Mental Health Awareness Month, on May 19th, we'll be hosting our next live interview. It's a program called Mind Your Health. We have a keynote discussion with the founder of the SCARS Foundation and frontman of the band Godsmack, Sully Erna, on deck, as well as a panel discussion talking about where music biz professionals and educators get their motivation from, what keeps them grounded, especially when things are incredibly challenging as they have been. So feel free, this is on the homepage of our website. Registration is free, so check that out as well. And as far as events goes, our next event coming up is It's Your Money. It's a financial literacy summit for artists and their teams, making sure that artists are set for their financial future. We just confirmed this week our day one keynote. We're going to be welcoming Sally Velasquez, who is the founder and partner of Empower Business Management. She'll be opening the whole event on day one. You can find more information on that as well on our website. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm going to welcome Bill Coulter from Music Reports to talk to you today. Bill, take it away.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Henrik, were you going to turn my camera on? There it goes. Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. It's great to see you all today. I want to thank Music Biz for making this possible, especially under Portia Savin's leadership. This organization has just been doing fantastic work in the last year. Really see the organization pushing ahead, and Nicole Hennessy deserves an enormous round of applause for putting on all these sensational events that she's been putting on. And I also want to thank Henrik Bick, who is the man making all the magic happen today. Thank you, Henrik, for being such a great host today. I also wanted to start by saying how much I miss all of you. Normally, I would be expecting to see you all in Nashville about this time of year, and it really is one of my favorite parts of being in this music business is, being part of this community and seeing all of you and hearing what you've been up to and hanging out with you. And I really sincerely hope that we can get together again soon and we can have a nice cold beverage and catch up on what everybody's been up to and how we've weathered this last strange year. The report from Music Reports on that is really fairly good. I'm proud to say that we were all there on that Friday, and then on that Monday we were all at home. But within days, everyone was back at their desks working remotely, and we managed not to miss a single beat. In fact, last year we paid out 50% more in royalties than we had in any year previously. So that was really nice because we know the community really needed that. And I want to thank you for joining today and give you an introduction to how Music Reports works with the music community. It's a a little bit of a complicated story because we're so different than so many other organizations that are out there in the ecosystem. We did this presentation 4 years ago and really focused on how Music Reports works with the publishing community, which I think was nice and well received, and it was good for us to be able to explain how we do things with the publishers in particular. We thought this time we would like to widen out that conversation and bring a little bit more balance to the picture by showing you more about how we work with the licensee community, because those two sides of that equation really balance each other out and create value for each other. So we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into the services side of Music Reports on today's session. So let's start with an introduction to us. We'll share my screen. Music Reports. Let's see. Music Reports has been pioneering rights and royalties administration for over 25 years. The company was founded in 1995. It's headquartered here in Los Angeles. We have 115 employees, and everything we do is based on our powerful music rights registries, Songdex, QTrack, and TrackDex. Those are founded on an enterprise-grade platform that's highly scalable, service organizations controls audited, based on its own proprietary cloud infrastructure with the fastest data processing available for these kinds of efforts. And it has become the global benchmark for back office processing. We issued 500 million licenses and administered them all last year. Tracking 25 billion hours of music used in audiovisual programs every year, 2 trillion audio and audiovisual transactions tracked annually. It's a gigantic data processing exercise. And, that's the reason we've been able to attract, really a platinum client list of over 500 customers, including some of the biggest names in entertainment media. And I'm happy to say that we've recently rededicated ourselves to our mission and values, which are fairness, accuracy, transparency, and timeliness. What is Music Reports? It's the back office that powers the global music ecosystem. And the problems we solve include identifying song ownership, matching music usage to royalty payments, securing millions of music licenses for rights users, making accurate payments for rights users, and making sure that accurate earnings for rights owners reach their correct destination. Again, we believe in fairness, accuracy, and transparency and timeliness in all these things, and we really do hold ourselves to a high standard internally, and we are proud to do the best we can for the community every day. Okay, so right, what do we actually do? We do a whole bunch of back office stuff. We do catalog integration, meaning integrating high volume electronic data exchanges between the licensees of music and the licensors of music to make sure that they can hear each other about the music that's being used. We do original music research and catalog management on those catalogs to make sure that the sound recordings being exploited in the marketplace are tied to the underlying musical compositions embodied in those recordings, in order to make sure that the licenses that are secured are comprehensive, and to make sure that the royalties paid out are paid out accurately and timely. And we make available a Songdex marketplace licensing opt-in platform so that rights users can bring to the publishing community, which is so disparate and wide-ranging, opportunities to work with their platforms, and so they can very easily click through to opt into those agreements. We do voluntary catalog license negotiation and processing the old-fashioned way as well. We will either administer licenses that our clients have secured directly through their attorneys or through their licensing staffs, and we will also help them negotiate and process licenses through our independent licensing division at Music Reports. We then do all the administration and royalty accounting on all those voluntary licenses. And to the extent they have PRO blanket licenses that need to be administered, we administer those as well. We then, of course, settle royalties to all of these licensors, whether they be PROs or labels or collective management organizations around the world. Any payee of royalties is liable to be paid by music reports at some point for something. We offer a client dashboard to our clients so that they can, see what's going on with the use of music on their platform. To the extent necessary, we provide audit and litigation support services. If something really goes wrong and there's a dispute between the licensee and the licensor, we get involved to bring the data and facts about the situation to light so that parties can resolve it amongst themselves. And I'm happy to say that it's extraordinarily rare that we get involved in those kinds of things. We provide consulting services and tackle a huge range of problems. In fact, we will consult on strategic questions and try to help people understand what they need to do to deal with the music licensor community. And then if there's a specific project that needs to come out of that, we'll perform an ad hoc project to solve that particular challenge, whether it's doing some analysis on a particular usage set, developing a system, whatever it may be. And then, of course, we manage all client data and store that data for years. And we, again, unlikely event of audit or litigation, we need to have that data available so that it can be pulled out to, underscore the facts and circumstances of a particular situation. And the company has evolved over 25 years. We're older than most people realize, and we are constantly developing new tools and skills. I like to tell people we're the Swiss Army knife of the music business, because whatever challenge arises in the marketplace, we seem to be able to solve it. That includes the foundation of Music Reports was working with the television industry. Back in the 90s, we developed the per program licensing system. Most people don't realize this history. This was helping local television stations manage their performance obligations with ASCAP and BMI. From about 1995 on, this gave us the opportunity to merge the ASCAP and BMI repertoires to see for the first time the ownership structure of songs at the share level, with the degree of accuracy necessary to administer high volume licenses to the exacting standards of the federal courts that supervise the consent decrees. And that was really the birth of Songdex as we know it. And then that creation of Songdex sent us on a path that allowed us to find value for songwriters and publishers who had been underserved by the distribution rules at the PROs, getting them paid faster, more accurately, and more money through direct licensing than had ever been possible before. That in turn enabled us to manage not just blanket license processing and reporting, but also high volume license management, payment settlement functions. So we began paying publishers, quite a bit of money at that point. And they then began to engage with us directly, not just for license administration, but also, by delivering their repertoire data to ensure that we had the most up-to-date picture of what they owned so we could pay them accurately. And then when streaming music emerged in the early 2000s, we realized that the US did not have a convenient mechanism by which DSPs could find all the tens of thousands of music publishers they needed to license mechanical rights for on-demand streaming. So we developed our platform by building it into the logic to automate strict compliance with the statutory mechanical license under Section 115, according to the rules that existed before the recent MMA. And we're extremely proud of that system because, unlike other systems that existed at the time and attempted to deal with the mechanical licensing problem on some ad hoc blanket basis, our system was 100% compliant with the law, informed publishers not just of all the compositions that our clients were using, but of all the recording level information that tied to those songs, including millions of track versions that publishers maybe had not even known existed, for example, because they were uploaded through a digital aggregator or by an independent artist who didn't know they had an obligation to distribute those works or to license those works. So our system also accounted to publishers every month within 20 days after the close of the month, and did that for about 12 years running, the longest record of the fastest royalty accounting ever experienced by music publishers before or since. And from there, we began building back office services for other companies that needed to manage their own royalty challenges in-house, such as the Disney Internet Group, InGrooves, Cirque du Soleil, and others. And then with the evolution of video on demand, we saw expanding opportunities for music and audiovisual programs. So we built on our foundation with PPL and created the Q-Track platform to meet those opportunities. I have to give a shout out to Netflix for believing in us. They were absolutely fantastic to work with. They gave us a massive challenge to help them understand the usage of music across their global video on demand platform and manage cue sheets for everything they produce and use. Now there are thousands of music supervisors using that platform, as well as other major VOD platforms like HBO. It's a hugely successful program. And so, throughout this process, we've become a vital partner to owners of music. It's not really always recognized, I don't think, that owners of music are not just individual actors in a vacuum, right? Songwriters and music publishers often collaborate on songs. There's an average of 4 composers and 6 publishers on songs written after the year 2000. They need to coordinate their metadata at the very beginning. So everybody knows that obviously doesn't happen very often. So we help sort all that out after the fact with a team of 50 copyright researchers supported by state-of-the-art metadata management systems. And of course, the records that labels distribute are derivative works, right? They embody the musical intellectual property of songwriters, creating hybrid properties that consist of a sound recording with a constituent composition. So then producers of audiovisual works create even more complex derivative works embodying both tracks and songs. And then they release those audiovisual works in multiple versions, right? Sometimes in different languages, different formats, different territory groupings. And then those studios distribute those audiovisual works in further versions in different times and places through different third-party distributors. So what we do is provide a data reconciliation and curation function in the center of all that. It continuously refines this deluge of information to store the results of all that work in our 3 primary registries: Songdex, TrackDex, and QTrack. And at this point, there are 114,000 music publishing administrators, 23,000 record labels, and 150 international CMOs, all comprised in that database. Over 350,000 distinct catalogs of music repertoire. And TrackDex then deduplicates the often hundreds of redundant but slightly distinct rows of sound recording metadata in the world, including duplicative ISRCs, for example. And it refines all those disparate rows into a single reliable set that's indexed against Songdex. And then QTrack itself is the world's largest independent registry of cue sheets. Once all that data is harmonized, we really begin to express our value as a vital partner to users of music. We are a unique source of objective data in order to ensure license coverage and accounting capability. And that's really important to users, right? Enterprise users of music manage their obligations to the music owner community with great difficulty when they're doing it on their own because of all the complexity that I just described. They may need to look at how the distribution records for a TV show to know what, that it contained a track by Whitney Houston that embodied a song by Dolly Parton, which label licensed the track, which publishers are owed performance royalties for the song. They also then need to calculate what performance royalty is due and determine whether it's due to Dolly's PRO or to some other directly licensed publisher. And if so, where that publisher is, whether they have a tax withholding obligation, where to send the check, whether they prefer to be paid by electronic deposit, and if so, what their ACH details are. It's a huge amount of enterprise-grade complexity that needs to be solved just to handle any one of these challenges. And you saw this huge range of customers that we support across these things. There's different challenges in each one of these industry groups. But first and foremost, all these users of music need to know that they are licensed, right? Every one of them wants to avoid copyright infringement, mostly because they're all genuinely, they want to see songwriters and publishers paid, but also because at the end of the day, copyright infringement is a very, very expensive problem, especially in the United States. We help them with all of that, which I'll touch more on later. So a little bit more focus, I think, on these powerful registries. I mentioned that that Songdex comprises huge amounts of music repertoire, that TrackDex deduplicates the redundant and messy rows of sound recording metadata and ISRCs, and that QTrack is the largest independent registry of cue sheets. But the thing that makes all 3 stronger than the sum of their parts is that they are all linked together. Each day, the processes that build Songdex, refine TrackDex, and power QTrack are synced and resynced with each other. New Songdex records enable systems and researchers to identify new track that had been unmatched. Thousands of music supervisors use QTrack to build out cue sheets for film and TV shows. And we'll soon be doing so for podcasts, I believe. And at the heart of all of that is this concept of always on matching, right? Songdex and TrackDex are constantly matching sound recordings to music compositions. I think, this one ingredient in Music Report's secret sauce is that we never stop this process. Every day, TrackDex receives new song information, either through deliveries of data from publishers, claiming activity by songwriters and publishers, systemic ingestion of high volume CWR files from larger publishers, and a lot of original research by our copyright research team. And as most people are now aware, the number one reason tracks don't get matched is that there's nothing to match them to. That is, no one ever created a metadata record for the underlying song, mainly because the majority of track distribution systems these days make delivery of publishing information optional rather than a requirement. And most artists are either too rushed or simply don't know that uploading that data is critical to getting them paid their songwriting royalties. So every time a new Songdex record is born, we get real excited and we want to immediately see if there are any tracks we've been holding on to but have never been able to match before. And we're so excited about that prospect that we do that cross-matching check twice a day. And lo and behold, virtually every time we find a match to some new track row that's been hanging around just waiting for its corresponding song information. It's South by Southwest in 2016. We launched the first direct publisher claiming system in the world, which I'll show a little bit later in the presentation. And that system posts millions of track rows that have never been matched, not for lack of trying, but just usually for lack of publishing data, as I said. It's like the back of the milk carton. Have you seen me? It makes available all the tracks that need a home. It's super easy to use, and I'm pleased to say at this point, as of last month, there were over 8,200 publishers using the claiming system, and they had claimed over 3 million previously unclaimed sound recordings, unlocking all of the royalties that had been awaiting a path to their owners. 5 years on, that system is still the #1 claiming system in existence. We'll again dive into that a little bit more later. And then just as we have these powerful databases that reinforce one another, we have these powerful systems that reinforce one another, right? Major product systems include the Music Publisher Portal, which I'll go through in a little bit more detail later. Full suite of publisher tools that are available for song registration and claiming systems, powerful licensing database, really amazing thing. That's what holds all of the disparate royalty terms for each license of each licensee and matches them to the song records in Songdex in order to render royalty statements at incredible speed and volume. And then we have the copyright data access research systems used by our internal users, and we even make some of those available externally. You can go to songdex.com and see one view of the Songdex database. And then for our clients, we make client-facing management portals available that give them data-rich analytics on their services and how music is being used within those services, how much they owe to whom, how they're doing on their timeliness, all of that kind of thing. So I'll spend very little time on the next couple slides, but I just wanted to reiterate that there's a huge amount of complexity. Earlier, we saw that we provide services to the licensee community and to the licensor community. These two slides sort of show in a little more granular detail how that happens. A music user might have as many as 4 different kinds of licenses they need to manage. Blanket licenses for performing rights, for an example. Direct licenses with major publishers that are high stakes negotiations. They might do a licensing campaign to try and reach the larger realm of independent music publishers. And then at some point they may offer an opt-in license to try and just make everyone's transaction costs lower by providing a simple offer that incentivizes them to make the best offer they can, usually on an MFN basis. and for the music publishing community to avoid costs and expense of thrashing through that license by just saying yes or no, whether they're interested in being a part of it. And so we manage all of these different types of licenses on behalf of the licensees who work with our system. And we appreciate that, the music publishing community prefers to license how they want to license. They have their choice of how they want to go about the process. So we built a system comprehensive enough to manage all of these different types of licenses. And then on the other side of that, the same system exports to the services a daily license status report that gives them, track clearance on a track level basis every single day. Those license status reports are incredibly valuable to the licensee community. They show you what you can use without infringement risk, what exists in your catalog that has yet to be matched, which may or may not be licensed, depending on whether it eventually matches to something that falls under an existing license. And things that you are definitely excluded from using. For instance, if there's an exclusion in a license agreement, we will populate those exclusions through flags in the license status report to the licensee community. So they know every single day how to manage content on their system. They know what they can post with a license in place and what they should not be using. And that gives them a huge amount of comfort as they're going forward and building out their businesses. And I think it's worth reflecting also that we're in a global ecosystem now, right? The digital music revolution definitely pushed music rights administration onto the global stage. Every digital service in particular wants to be global in order to reach the scale necessary to maximize their economic opportunities, which means finding ways to license not just in the United States, but all around the world. We manage that in a bunch of different ways, but one thing that's notable is that the system for accounting outside the United States tends to be distinctly different than the system inside the United States traditionally. In the United States, we have a direct affirmative accounting model, right? You take a license, you tell that licensor what you used of their work, and you send them a royalty statement that clearly describes what you used and how you calculated the royalties due under the license. And then you send them a check with a statement. And that's how accounting works, generally speaking. And most of us, are just sort of assume that that's the way it's supposed to work. Outside the United States, the collective management organizations have evolved a very different system whereby digital music services provide simply a gross usage file of everything that they've used in a particular period and allow the CMOs to identify what belongs to them in that set through what's called a CCID claiming file, and then send an invoice to receive the royalties associated with those works. We find that there's a lot of messiness in that system because if you let 10 different licensors claim on your usage for a particular month and you add up all of their claims, it typically adds up to about 120% of the royalty pool, meaning that there's obviously some issue with the claims being made by these licensors. So we built a system that receives all of those incoming claims files and reconciles them all against each other, identifies where each two parties are in conflict with one another and provides them an exception file that allows them to work out those conflicts among themselves, and verifies the actual royalties obligated by the licensor, allowing them some comfort in knowing what their obligations are, where their risks are, where licenses are in place, and giving them a much greater sense of security, both in their licensing operations and in their accounting operations. And the biggest problem we find in that global ecosystem is that the pace of processing the sales files from the user services is extremely slow. This isn't a knock on the parties doing the work necessarily. They weren't built to do this stuff, right? The digital landscape sort of caught up on them unawares. And it's a difficult process. As you know from earlier in this presentation, Music Reports was born doing high volume data processing in the music space for the US television industry, where every day we process every single minute of programming 24 hours a day on 500 of the largest local television stations. That allows us to understand how to drive through huge usage files in order to understand what's been used when and how. And we adapted that to processing of these DDEX, digital sales reports. Our benchmark on that is under 30 minutes to process, a file containing billions of rows of data, which enables us to provide about a 14-day business turnaround for our clients, as opposed to, many, many quarters in arrears is what is typically seen in the marketplace in general. So we're very pleased with this system, which is now being adapted by multiple clients to help them understand their international royalty obligations. And then, of course, we do all the royalty processing and distribution functions that go with that. There's not really a lot of reason to dwell on this page. We process the royalties, we pass them through tax validation systems. We are directly electronically engaged with multiple US banks. We perform tax withholding as necessary. The entire system is audited by the AICPA rules by a third-party auditor who constantly examines our systems and controls to make sure our systems are fit for purpose and operating as designed. So that's sort of the way Music Reports works with the licensee community. So I'll turn now to a revisit of the publisher portal and how we work with the publishing community. We have a publisher portal. There are, again, 114,000 publishing administrators logged into this portal at any given time. And they represent, upwards of 300,000 discrete catalogs of music publishing. Each one of them has a dashboard of this kind. Everyone on this call who is a publisher is almost certainly in here. And there's a lot of tools that you can find in here. This is just the nav bar to show you some of those tools: a dashboard, access to statements, payment history, direct license statements, annual statements. This is a legacy of the pre-MMA era. Your account details that you can manage, facts about our system, and then some catalog management tools. The first of these, of course, is this dashboard. We just wanted to make it easy to navigate all this complexity. We show you where your royalties are coming from. We show you, how that breaks down across services. We show you messages that we might want to bring to your attention. There's charts that show how your royalties stack up against one another over time. Then there's quick archival access to tens of thousands of statements. Every statement that we've ever generated for any of our clients on behalf of your catalog is available for you to see. You simply select the time period that you want to look at. Drop-down menus at the top help you navigate through time on that front. And then you can pull up the statements that associate with any of that activity. You can download them as exportable statements. You can sort of download them all at once or in groups and ingest them into your internal systems if necessary, but there's really no need to do so because they're stored here for many, many years as an archive. Helps you manage all of that data storage without cost. Then, each one of those statements contains detailed, transparent records of the way in which the royalties were calculated down to the per play rate. And as this one is a relatively simple calculation, but some of the statutory calculations get extremely complicated. We show all the steps and all of the inputs that went into those steps. There's a detail page associated with this well, but I don't have a screenshot of it. It's just a line-by-line reckoning of every single track in your catalog that embodies one of your compositions and how many times it was played and the per play rate associated with it and the total royalties due. Then, of course, there's a full payment history, including cash check logs, so you can see exactly who paid you when. If the check didn't arrive in the mail, from this system to go look for it. And if you say the check got lost in the mail, and we see that it's actually been cleared, then there might be a different problem. Maybe someone stole the check, or maybe you deposited it and don't remember. At any rate, you can call our royalty services team. They're extremely helpful customer service representatives. They treat the publisher community with kid gloves and with great care because we really appreciate how difficult it is to be a music publisher in this day and age, and how much complexity the digital music system has brought for all of us. We have all of these tools here at Music Reports. It makes it easier for us to manage some of this complexity. And if you ever have concerns, you can call us up. We're very easy to find, and we're very responsive in terms of managing any issues that may arise from any of your statements. You can get access, and I really want to hit on these last couple things a little more carefully. You can access your catalog at any time as we show it in Songdex. And if you find issues with it, you can edit those, and they will be sent to our manual research team for review so that they can get into why it is that our records might differ from your understanding of the shared ownership of a particular work. That's a really powerful way for you to make corrections if you feel that they need to be made, and for us to continuously refine Songdex to ensure that it is the leading database of music rights information in the world. We take that role very, very seriously, and we'll consider any of your edits very carefully as they may come in. And finally, this is the claiming system. This is a view of the millions of tracks seeking matches that exist in our system. As I said, we're extremely diligent about matching, right? We spend more resources probably than anybody else in the world on humans and systems to match sound recordings to musical compositions. We even have a US patent on the subject. And we perform those matching functions at least twice a day across the entire catalog. But nevertheless, the other panels that you've seen through the Music Biz education series have shown you how much difficulty there is in that matching process, how much messiness there is in the data out there in the ecosystem that we're wrangling all the time. And so we built this system so that you can add some self-help to the equation. There's really nobody who knows your catalog as well as you do. And you may be able to see in the data something recognizable that our researchers or our computers wouldn't be able to recognize. And you can see just from this illustration, I know this is fairly tiny on the screen, but this is a combination of tracks with the phrase "believe in me" in the title. It's a fairly common phrase. There are hundreds of songs probably with this phrase in them. And there's 5 screens of them here listed in this panel. And the bottom screen represents your catalog. This is a test catalog. But there is a song here called "Believe in Me" in this catalog. The question is, which one of the dozens and dozens of recordings in the top panel actually is the same composition that was written by this set of writers that's illustrated here? And the answer may be none of them, or it may be half a dozen of them, or it may be dozens of them. And those dozens may be distinct from one another because each one of them has a different metadata artifact, or might be a different cover version of the same composition. There's a million ways that it can be difficult to match those two things together. And one of the easiest ways is where there's a cover recording, the title and artist don't match, right? All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix is easy to recognize as the composition written by Bob Dylan because it's a famous composition and Jimi Hendrix is a famous artist. But if I were to do a cover of All Along the Watchtower and put my name on it, that title artist combination is unique and different from any other one that exists in the world. And you may be surprised to know there are more than one composition in the world called All Along the Watchtower. And so trying to figure out which version of which song called All Along the Watchtower ties to that particular recording is a super challenging thing. However, if I'm the person who uploaded the track, because I'm a self-published artist, and I know it's my own song called All Along the Watchtower that doesn't belong to Bob Dylan or anybody else, then this system may easily help me find it because it would have the song title plus my name attached to it. And while no computer in the world would know that because I only uploaded it 15 minutes ago, and no human researcher would ever be able to find me, maybe because I speak a different language or don't know about music publishing, never heard of Songdex, I don't have a very high public profile. And by the way, again, I just wrote the song 15 minutes ago and nobody knows that I've written it yet. I haven't told anybody about it. This claiming system can be used to find that track row and to identify that musical composition as my own. That simple self-help concept, again, has allowed 3 million tracks to be claimed in the last few years. And the volume of claims on that system is increasing very significantly. It's almost like an exponential curve. Each year, the pace of new claims on the system is double the year before. We're extremely pleased that that's had so much success in the marketplace. Powerful tool for music publishers to use in finding your stuff. And again, there's multiple fields here that you can match against: title, artist, album, ISRC, to identify the recording that you're looking for. And then you're searching your own catalog here, or you can add a new song to the catalog. If you know it's a brand new song that you just wrote, you can click this button. And there's a song builder screen that will help you add the information to describe that composition right then and there. This is the kind of tool that really helps in the current state of the global ecosystem, because there are just so many tracks being launched every day. I think the current status is about 60,000 new tracks a day. But finally, I want to really hit on this. The Songdex marketplace also emerged in 2016, and it has gotten very popular in the last couple of years. There are over a dozen companies making license offers through this system now. You need to log into your own portal to see which offers are available to you. But there are leading global brands here that want to use your music and are eager for you to identify yourself as being interested in being licensed by them. We know your repertoire, and we know how you prefer to be paid because you've already set up your account with us. And so once you come in and click one of these agreements, you can be assured that as soon as your music is used on these platforms, we will instantly be able to find you and pay you for your works. Because by definition, when you click through one of these agreements, we send a license status report to the client saying, these are all the tracks that embody songs that have clicked through the license agreement today. So they know that it's cleared, and we have a one-to-one relationship between the license function and the accounting function. There's no matching or ambiguity involved at that point. We've already pre-matched the entire catalog on these services to the music publishing information that we know about. And we've already identified to them precisely which tracks embody the songs that are licensed. So there's no ambiguity for them on the licensing side. This brings down the risk of infringement for the licensees to zero. And it brings the risk of underpayment by the rights owners down to zero as well, because there's again a one-to-one relation, a very tight linkage between the license and the accounting function, so that we can transparently, accurately, and timely pay you for the years of your work through the system, which we call the Songdex marketplace. So that's the end of my presentation. Would love to answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Bill. And yes, we do have about 5 questions here in the Q&A box. We've got about 15 minutes left in today's presentation, so we'll get through as many of them as we can. And for any that we don't get, we'll communicate with Bill at the end of the session, make sure we get answers for you. The one persistent question in the chat was whether or not this presentation would be available as a PDF to those who are attending today.
That was not our plan, no.
Well, no worries, because as mentioned in the chat, this webinar will be on Music Biz's website. So if you missed anything today that you'd like to recap, be sure to visit musicbiz.org in the coming days to ensure that you get a chance to check it out.
Yeah, again, happy to talk through any of the details on any of these programs. If you would like, we're very easy to find, musicreports.com. Our telephone number is posted there on the website. We're eager to talk to anyone who's interested in finding an easier way to manage all of these complex tasks. Again, we perform tasks on both the publisher side and the rights user side. So while we're often associated with the licensee side of the equation, because that's the origin story of the company, We do actually have direct client relationships with a number of large publishers and CMOs to help them manage their back office processes. As I reflected earlier in the presentation, the system outside the United States is essentially the reverse of the US system, right? The US system, you account affirmatively after matching everything in the catalog that's been used. You send an accounting statement, you do the royalty calculations, you make the payment. Outside the United States, you have to process the same ones, do the same matching function, but instead of sending an accounting statement, you're sending a claims statement to the licensor, to the licensee. And it's essentially the reciprocal of the same functions that we built in-house. So we provide services to, especially high volume music publishers to help them officially manage those claims. Again, we can process those claims files vastly faster than anybody else, whether it be a licensor or a licensee or a data specialist or not. We're very specialized at doing this. This is our bread and butter, so we're very good at it, and happy to work with music publishers on any of the challenges that they may have. The nature of our system is it's sort of an enterprise grade system. It's a very high volume system. So in order to bring that much firepower to bear, they're generally fairly high level engagements. So we provide a lot of free tools for independent publishers and self-published artists, and we perform customer service for them exactly as if they were the Sony Music Publishing. But to provide sort of back office publishing functions, we don't currently provide those services for smaller music publishers. We do them for larger music publishing entities.
All right, to run through the questions we have here. First off, can you explain how the launch of the MLC affects music reports and how we should understand the difference between the two organizations?
Yeah, of course, that question is on a lot of people's minds. So, again, we do a whole range of things that have nothing to do with mechanicals in the United States. Performance rights on television, performance rights in SVOD, ex-US operations. A bunch of our clients are not eligible for licensing through the MLC, including the big social platforms, VR, connected fitness companies, gaming companies, etc. So there, Music Reports has a huge range of functions that go beyond what the MLC does. The MLC did come in to replace the song-by-song licensing that Music Reports pioneered in the early 2000s. And so we no longer perform the song-by-song licensing function for on-demand streaming services. But many of those streaming services prefer to have voluntary license arrangements with the music publishing community, in part because they just enjoy a more direct relationship with their licensors, in part because they need services and license grants that go beyond what the MLC is able to provide, for example, rights to music videos, or use of lyrics, or other kinds of functionality. And so it's just easier for them to have a direct relationship with those publishers. Where that is the case, they tend to hire us to manage the voluntary licenses with the music publishers for whom they have such licenses. And then the remainder of the file goes to the MLC for sorting out through the independent publishers and the long tail publishers, and for managing the unmatched portion of those files. So that's sort of how the two pieces fit together. We represent almost all of the same customers that we did before the MLC came into existence. We may perform slightly different functions for them. Many of our clients have hired us just to manage the process of dealing with the MLC, which is very complex. You need high volume data processing capabilities in order to process the usage files that the statutes require. The MLC is just one of a suite of licensors that you need to manage as a digital music service. You still need to manage the performing rights organizations. You need to manage your ex-US licensors. So you have this whole panoply of rights administration challenges, and most digital services are really focused on their product and their customers and trying to really bring a great music service to the customers. And so their focus is on that, and they prefer to outsource the back office stuff to a specialist organization like Music Reports. It's just very adept at dealing with all of these different kinds of licensors. So they hire us to manage the MLC for them. The second question is related as well. The MLC has a database of rights. How does Music Reports database compare to it? Also, do you think matching, like you have explained, will need to continue if the data is being cleaned up? Will claiming still be needed if the MLC database is used? Yeah, so again, very confusing message about the public database, right? The MLC's public database relates to mechanical rights in the United States. So if you need anything to do with performance rights or anything to do with any territory outside the United States, it's already not going to be sufficient for purpose. Plus, there are many services in the United States that are not eligible for Section 115 licensing. And so if you need your data to be available for social media platforms or connected fitness companies or any of these other kinds of companies so that they can find you and license you and pay you, then you want to be integrated with the Songdex database. So I think you can hear just from the answer that the Songdex database is vastly larger and more comprehensive than the MLC public database because it incorporates not just the mechanical right in the US, but all rights types in all territories, which powers a huge range of different kinds of services. So it's very important that you go harmonize your data with the MLC database. That is something everybody should do. All publishers need to integrate with the MLC in order to provide their publishing information so that they can collect that extraordinarily valuable pool of royalties that is US mechanical rights for on-demand streaming. But that's not the end of the story. You still have, many, many other market opportunities and revenue opportunities for your catalog. And you're definitely going to want to continue to integrate and manage with Songdex. To what extent does music reports become involved in sound recording performance royalties and neighboring rights administration? Thank you for asking, Kevin Parks. Yeah, so we do have a very long history with sound recording performance rights, actually. Music Reports originally created a platform called Royalty Logic that was intended to be a neighboring rights platform. But the Copyright Royalty Board in the United States eventually interpreted the laws around Section 114, the compulsory performance rights for digital audio transmissions, as requiring a single monopoly collective called Sound Exchange. And so Royalty Logic sort of went into mothballs for a while. And then it was, it's always been sort of an important part of our business. So a few years later, we were hired by one of the largest payers of royalties into Sound Exchange to manage a direct licensing effort for them. So we set out and managed, license with thousands of record labels directly with this platform, and got them paid faster, got them paid more accurately. It's same as we do in the television business, getting rights owners paid faster and more accurately by direct licensing, rather than going through, a blanket licensing entity. And so we became very adept at doing that. Later on, that client took that function in-house, but at the same time they did that, you may be familiar with the Turtles case, the Flo and Eddie case, which was about pre-1972 recordings. Now, this all started before the MMA changed the law through the Classics Act, but at that time, they had legitimate claims for the use of their sound recordings on digital audio platforms. And they pressed those claims, and the result was a settlement in which they entered into a 10-year license for pre-72 recordings, which we administer on behalf of the class plaintiffs. So, we receive royalties for pre-72 usage and pay them to those record labels. We also do some sound recording performance administration for non-musical works for spoken word and comedy sector. That's becoming a more interesting business now. There are two collective management organizations for spoken word content, one called Spoken Giants and the other called Word Collection. So look for more sound recording administration and music reports. We're definitely very good at it. I'm a music publisher who has used music reports for several years. Very pleased with the direct license offers I've accepted over the years. Great. However, I recently received a paper check in the mail, which I am unable to locate a statement which matches my MRI account. Is there someone I could speak to about this? Yes, there is. Just call the main number at Music Reports and ask for royalty services. Someone will get back to you. You can also write to royaltyservices@musicreports.com, and someone will get back to you promptly about that. But it illustrates an important point as well. Around the world, we're seeing that people are beginning to refuse to negotiate checks. There are some European countries who will no longer cash checks. So we are currently in the process of building out an international electronic payment platform to be able to pay rights holders faster and more efficiently. You also assist with direct deal negotiations. We absolutely do. We have a licensing division, professionals who've been working on this stuff for decades, really, really experienced group. Of course, we have the Songdex database. So if you ask us, can we license this particular song? We can immediately find out who owns that song, in what shares, where they are, who their licensing contact is, and reach out to them on their behalf. We tend to do that kind of work only, again, in high volume. It's an enterprise service that we provide at Music Reports. So to be able to make that work, it really needs to work at scale. But yes, if you need to license 8 million sound recordings, or if you need to license, an entire catalog of music publishing rights, we're absolutely the best game in town for doing that, and happy to help you with your negotiations. So I guess that's about the end of the questions.
You've got one more in the box and one more in the chat if you're up for it.
Can you tell me what the chat question is?
Sure. From the chat, missed some of the presentation. How much does Music Report Services cost?
Well, so that completely varies depending on what it is that we're providing for you. I showed you earlier in this presentation a generic menu of services that we tend to provide for music services licensees. But of course, as I mentioned, we also provide services for licensors. Again, we're sort of like a Swiss Army knife. We have a million different functions, and it depends on what you need, what the cost is. So what we first do is work with you to understand specifically what your challenge is. And if you're not, managing that yourself, we'll work with your outside advisors, your outside counsel to sort of help refine and focus your rights administration strategy. And then once we've determined what that is, we'll send you a proposal with a specific pricing proposal. Everything is bespoke in that way. And of course, the same is true on the licensor side. Some licensors want just DDEX file pre-processing. Some people want full end-to-end claiming systems. Some people want us to get involved in cleaning up their repertoire. Others want us to actually build them an entire repertoire management system. So it really depends what it is you want us to do, and it's not easy to answer what specifically we charge for that. But generally, our fees are based on recurring monthly fees, so it's a very predictable cost structure, easy to manage for the licensees. Just want to say thanks again for having the opportunity to do this. I really enjoy, again, being able to talk with the community, and really prefer to do it in person. So I look forward to being able to do that with you in person next time. Hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Bill Coulter, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We're glad to have you here. Appreciate also the kind words up top. Love working together, and happy to be doing it in the future. Thank you all as well for attending today. Thank you for taking time out of your afternoon. Greatly appreciate it. As I said, if there's any questions we didn't get to, we'll run them by Bill and get you some answers. And be sure to look out for the recording of this on our website in case you missed anything. Have a great afternoon.